This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Cory provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome back to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you'd like more information about today's show, feel free to give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to check out our radio page. You can watch some past shows, as well as subscribe to our show on the following podcast: Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, or Spotify. Also, feel free to watch the show on our YouTube channel. And while you're on our YouTube channel, you can just type in Safe Harbor Retirement Group, and you can also watch other videos on different types of financial topics. And we also have a Financially Fit Quick Tips as well. So feel free to watch some of our daily Financially Fit tips on our YouTube channel as well. You know, we're here to address any inquiries you may have, and you know, if you want to schedule a meeting with us, just remember all meetings are complimentary and there's no financial obligation. What we want to do for you is create a financial plan if you don't have one. And if you do have one, we can be that second set of eyes and provide a second opinion. Well, today we're going to talk about, I think, a topic that everyone should be interested in, and that's really the proper way, the essential way to pass your assets on to your children, could be grandchildren, or basically any beneficiary that you want to. But before we dive into that, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Cory. Great to be here with you. I'm excited about today's show. It's a good topic. I think a lot of people put this off or don't have an idea on how to do this or plan for transferring wealth. So this is great. It's a good topic to dig into. I don't think it's one we've focused much on in the past either. So good one. I've been great. You know, I had a good weekend. Just trying to get things done around the house and keeping busy, spending time with the family, the usual. It sounds the same, but it really was a good weekend. How about you? What did you do?
You know, it was a good weekend. I stayed home, did a lot of stuff around the house, lost an hour of sleep.
Yeah, we lost an hour last weekend.
That one's a killer.
It is. And they came so close to changing that. And making it permanently where, you know, I just think the spring forward, it kills us, right? And they should leave it at this time and not change it back in the fall. We'd all be better. You'd get more daylight and you wouldn't have to keep changing times twice a year. I'm all for that. I don't know why they don't. I haven't heard one good argument for keeping daylight savings time and keep changing that each year.
No, but it seems like it's always in the news, or nothing ever gets done on it. So
I would like to. It's so weird.
I think many people like to see that go away in general. But you know, another nice thing that's coming up here is March Madness. You know, I think it's one of the best sporting things to watch over a few weeks. Just over a few weeks.
It is fun.
It is fun, and you know, there's going to be some bracket busters out there, and who knows who those will actually be. But it's actually a good time to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's fun to do the brackets with your coworkers and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe win a little money on top of that as well.
Yeah. There you go. Somebody's going to win it. I don't know. The last few years, though, it's been so. You know, the main picks have not done well. So we'll see.
Know. Yep, that is true. So let's kind of talk about wealth transfer. You know, and you know, I said, you know, it could be children, it could be grandchildren. But it's basically anybody you want to be able to give money to. If you don't have kids, it might be nieces or nephews or brothers or sisters. And the one thing that I would probably say is, this is just like with a financial plan. You really need to be able to really start as early as possible in order to make sure that you have everything lined up. And one reason why I want to be able to say that too, Tony, is we don't know when we're actually going to pass. And you want to have everything in line to make sure everything is going to go exactly the way that you want it to. And hopefully, if you do a little planning with this, it can also go the most tax efficient way, to your beneficiaries as well.
Well, and we've talked about tax efficiency, especially in retirement. But if you're leaving money to loved ones, you don't want to leave it, to coin a phrase from Ed Slott's book, a ticking tax time bomb, right?
That's exactly right. And really, what you're referring to there is obviously if you have a 401k or you have IRAs or a thrift savings plan or 403bs where you put money into it that you never paid taxes on, if it goes to your beneficiaries and except for your spouse is an exemption on this, but anyone else that it goes to on those types of accounts, they have 10 years in order to take that out. So depending on the amount of money that that you have in those type of accounts, that could actually cause a huge tax impact, over, if you're giving it to your kids, for example. The reason why I say that, usually when a parent passes, the kids are more likely in the top earnings that they have really have ever earned, which means they're making more money. Now you have all these other IRAs coming in that they have to take out over a 10-year period. Now that could actually put them in different types of tax brackets, which means they're going to pay more taxes on what they're earning today, but they're also going to pay more taxes on what you're actually giving them as well.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, they're dealing with your loss. Then you want them to have the money or what you've left behind. You don't want it all to go to Uncle Sam and or leave them with such a huge tax burden they have to sell your property or whatever else you've left to them. And I've seen that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think many of us have seen all that type of happen, and the other side of this, I think as you kind of go through the process, what this is going to allow you to do more than anything is now you're going to be able to establish clear goals and what you're really trying to accomplish. And when you're working with an advisor, once we can figure out where you want it to go and how you want it to go, now we can start planning for is it possible to make this the most tax efficient way in order to give that money to your kids or to your loved ones as well. I think that's a very important part. Just because you have $1 million in IRA money, believe me, that's not $1 million that's really going net to whoever your beneficiaries are.
Right. As I've said before, that traditional IRA or 401k, that's a joint account. It's not all your money. It's a joint account with Uncle Sam.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
take
right.
His share. Yeah.
And, one of the things obviously that we're doing more and more of right now is, if you're working today, we're definitely promoting that you put money into those Roth 401ks now if your company offers them. Pay your taxes, invest for the future, but now that's growth is going to be tax-free, and when you take it out, it's tax-free. But obviously, if you're in a situation where you're no longer working, you have IRA money, it can make a lot of sense to start converting some of this stuff to Roth IRA money. And it's going to do two things. One is if you need that money later on in retirement, it's going to come to you now tax-free. You're going to pay your taxes. You're not going to care what your taxes are, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. The other side of that is now you're able to actually give that money to your beneficiaries in the most tax efficient way, which means it's going to be tax free to them as well. So if you work with an advisor, that's something that they should be talking to you about. And again, it's just to be able to make sure that we understand your situation, what you're trying to accomplish. And then we put together a plan that's going to make that happen for you.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. Obviously, you want to leave tax-free money if you can, and you've talked about those options: Roths, cash value life insurance, and it's good to know there are strategies out there to do that. And you're not saying you have to have all your eggs in that basket, but you definitely want a tax-free bucket. You want a tax-deferred bucket, and those are your traditional retirement accounts, and then you want tax-free buckets like a Roth IRA or a cash value life insurance policy, because that's huge, isn't it?
Yes, it is huge. And you know, when you're actually sitting down, you have your goals and things, then really what we're doing the very first time we meet, Tony, is we're going to sit down and understand what you're trying to do. The next thing is to take what you're wanting to do and actually put it into documents, right? And that's where we're really now talking about creating wills and be able to create trust. And obviously, it depends on your financial situation, whether a will is going to make more sense or whether a trust is going to be able to make more sense. The one thing that you always have to remember, wills go lump sum. So if you have, some money that's going to go to your children and grandchildren, whoever that is, and they can't manage money, that trust might make a little bit more sense because you can actually limit when they receive that money, whether it's, a third at death or a third 5 years later or a third at certain ages. You can create whatever you want with the trust, or maybe you want to be able to just give them money on a monthly or annual basis. You can state that, actually in your trust documents.
Yeah, and trust can also help protect that money from lawsuits or divorces, if your children have that situation. A trust protects that money from those situations in most cases.
It can definitely do that, because since the trust actually owns the money, and if you are going through some type of legal issue, yeah, you're right, Tony. That can be some added protection to make sure that that ex-spouse doesn't receive money, or there's other things that can play with that as well. But that's why it's so important. And if all of a sudden, if you're also giving money to someone that even has special needs, for example, a trust is going to make a lot of sense, because you don't want to take them off of being able to, they might be on Medicaid or Medicare, and you don't want to be able to actually take them off of that because you make too much money. So you can make sure that the money is theirs. However, they're going to give them to them on a monthly basis so they can still receive all the other benefits that they're receiving because of their disability. So again, it's sitting down, going through that process with an advisor who, like us, we have a relationship with an attorney that we can put all this stuff in writing for, to make sure that everything goes exactly the way you want it to. And again, in the most efficient way as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a good point. We're talking about trusts, wills, documentation now. I think it is important that people have a plan and work with yourselves and an attorney to get this enhanced planning or legacy planning, estate planning. People call it by different names, but it is so crucial, and it's something most people put off and are not prepared for. So, Cory, how can our listeners get a hold of you to set up that consultation to see if they can get a plan in place?
Yeah, the easiest way is to give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. And really, we're here to help and guide you. We want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, for you and your estate. And the best way to do that is to have that complimentary, no obligation meeting with us. Again, our phone number is 614-760-0670. You can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com.
All right. Well, great discussion so far, Cory. I mean, we're talking about tips for transferring wealth to our loved ones, or wherever we want our money to go after we pass, mainly children and grandchildren for most people, but sometimes it's a charity or things like that. And that's where planning really comes into place. You mentioned taxes. That's a big, big reason to plan, so it all doesn't go to Uncle Sam, so they're able to keep as much as possible. What's something else we should know about transferring wealth?
The one thing that I do see, Tony, more than anything is obviously people want to avoid probate, right?
Right.
So that is part of the goal. And there's usually three issues that I see that people have issues with that actually could go through the probate process. And, obviously the first one is going to be bank accounts. The second one is going to be your house. And the third one is going to be like your vehicle. Those are usually the three that actually kind of go through the probate process, because, any account that you have with an advisor, that already should have beneficiaries on it. And one thing that people need to remember, that the beneficiary forms override any trust or any will that you have out there. So once you put a beneficiary on there, that's the way it's gonna go unless you actually change that beneficiary form. So, however, one thing that we do want to make sure of, and we sit down with clients all the time to make sure that their bank accounts, vehicles, and their houses are going to be set up to avoid probate. And the other part of it is we talk about being tax efficient too. One of the worst things that you can actually do, and I highly recommend that you talk with an advisor or an attorney, is if you have a father or a parent, father, mother, or parent that owns a house today. Sometimes one of the things that they actually think that they'll do is they'll just change the name from them over to their children. And the one thing that you do not want to do is that, because that's going to have a huge tax consequence later on when your parent or does pass away. So, again, sit down with an advisor. We want to make sure it goes the most efficient way. The best way to be able to handle those type of situations is do what we call a transfer on death affidavit, or a quick claim deed, where you're able to actually transfer that over to your kids. But it's kind of like you're setting a beneficiary up for your real estate. You're not actually changing the name on the deed today. You're doing it later, which means also and here's the biggest impact with that: you won't pay any taxes on that once you sell that property. And if you do it the wrong way, you could be paying capital gains taxes because you actually did it the incorrect way. Again, talk with an advisor or an attorney to make sure that you're doing it the right way, to make sure it goes the most efficient way to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are ways to put beneficiary designations on your home, or leave it to the trust and things like that. There are different ways to do that, and I think it's great that you know about these strategies, and this is something you help your clients with to make sure they avoid costly mistakes and don't leave their loved ones with a burden. And, a lot of people think, well, I'll have a will. A will is just a directive to the court. And you mentioned probate. And for our listeners out there, I'm sure everybody knows, but probate is the court process, and you have to pay attorneys, and it takes time. It goes through the courts. It's public. So you can avoid all that. A will, all it does is it's a directive for the court for the probate process. If you really want to avoid that, a court and the costly attorney fees, it's better to spend a smaller amount now to set up a trust and an estate plan and get those beneficiary designations in order, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, spend a little bit money up front to be able to save a lot of money on the back end, and that's really what it's going to be able to do. Because in the state of Ohio, we're looking around a 5% fee, depending on what assets actually go through the probate process. So obviously, we can work with you to make sure, even if you have a will, that none of your assets go through probate. But you just need to be able to make sure that you're doing it the right way.
Right.
Because no one wants to be able to, no one wants to pay that. And the other part of it is, it's not only the cost, but it's also the time that it can also take for those assets to come out of it as well.
Right.
So, another thing, Tony, that I get, I do receive a lot of questions on this. And, let's just say someone has 3 children, right? And they'll say, you know what, I'm going to leave all of it to one child, and that one child is the responsible one, and they're going to make sure that the other 2 get their share. And I see this all the time, and it's just not something that you want to be able to do. So if you're actually thinking that you're going to give all your money to one child and they're going to disperse it, legally they don't have to do anything.
Right.
The other side of this is, depending on what you're giving them, they could be the one that's handling all the tax liability for those assets as well.
Yeah.
So if you want it to go 3 ways, make sure you're setting it up 3 ways. And if you're worried about one of your children not being able to manage the money, then set up a trust. So again, we're here to help you to make sure it goes the way that you want to. But you do need to take a little bit of responsibility. And when we start talking about this whole thing about estate planning in general, Tony, I think a lot of it's just procrastination. People
people
always say, I need to do that, but they never do it.
Right.
And the other side of all this, and I've seen this numerous times too, is you want to do this when you're healthy. You do not want to do it when you know that you've been diagnosed with some type of terminal illness, because then that is more of the end of that, and you're really not going to want to be able to start dealing with all this because of the finality you're gonna feel about going through this process.
Yeah, and people, nobody likes to think about their own passing or a loved one's passing, and that's why this gets put off. But really what you're doing is you're maintaining family harmony. I saw it when my grandfather passed. My dad and his siblings, there were things that weren't in order, and they hadn't communicated with the kids what was happening. And it just creates disharmony amongst family. It can tear families apart. But if you have a plan in place and you communicate, here's our plan, this is what we want, this is what's going to happen, everybody's on the same page, you've got it done ahead of time, it's a weight off of you, and it's going to alleviate arguments and situations in the future after you're gone.
I would highly recommend that, when you're actually finalizing or finished with your estate plan, that you have a family meeting, let everyone know exactly who's going to be, who's going to be the trustee or who's going to be the executor. This is how we're actually going to distribute all the funds. Everyone should, I think it's going to be a lot easier if they hear it from you rather than actually being shocked on how some of the things were going to be distributed, because some attorney or somebody's reading the will or the trust where you actually find out how things are actually going to go down.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's why, and I'll be honest, my wife and I just finally got this done and finalized it, and we're both in our late 50s now. So it was probably past due. You should have something in place. Obviously, you want to have healthcare directives and powers of attorney in place long before you reach that point. And I would say, no matter where you're at, if you're married with children, you need to have these things in place, don't you?
Oh yeah, you exactly need to have all this stuff in place. Again, it's kind of back to our time. I know we're healthy today, but something could happen on my way home tonight,
Right.
right? We don't know I have no idea when my day is going to come. If we all knew the day when we were going to pass, that'd be awesome. Because the other part of it is the other part that I also hear a lot about, Tony, is I have all this money and I'd love to be able to spend it all before I pass, right? Well, we don't know when we're going to pass. The other part of it is you never run, you don't want to run out of money. So odds are you're going to have something available the day you do pass, and you want to make sure that's going to go the best way possible to, to whoever your beneficiaries are. Because
Right.
let's face it, you've worked hard your entire life. You don't want to leave it up to some judge or some probate court to determine how those funds are going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to avoid that at all costs. And I think that really planning ahead is so much better for everybody involved because it alleviates stress. That's my big part of it. You don't have to worry about it. Once you're done, you don't need to worry about it other than if there's a big change in the family, review those beneficiary designations once a year or so with your financial professional. But all of this, Cory, you do not want to try to do this on their own. I've seen people do that and they make really costly mistakes. Work with a financial pro like yourself.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. If I have an issue, and I need to go, if I need to go to a doctor, I'm not going to try to do whatever needs to be done to myself. I'm going to let the doctor be able to do that,
Right.
right? If I'm going to do my taxes, I'm going to go to a CPA. So, if you need help with this stuff, go to someone that works with this stuff daily, and that's a financial advisor that can guide you to make sure that you're doing the things the right way. Our job is to be able to help you. We have a fiduciary responsibility, so we're going to recommend the things that are in your best interest. And I think that's something that everyone really should, take advantage of. If you have any questions about today's show, just feel free to give us a call at 614-760-0670. or you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. Just remember, all of our meetings that you do come in and meet with us, they're all complimentary. There's no financial obligation. We're truly here to help and guide you to make sure that you have the best retirement that you can have. And part of it is to make sure that you're set up to avoid probate, just like on today's discussion. We want to make sure that you have an estate plan in place as well.
All right. Thanks, Cory. And listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Join us next week for another episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.